Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, Executive Leadership Coach, and I am on day 7 of 21 Days Live. So if you are here in the chat, let me know, say hello. And I'm going to be talking tonight about the word no and how we avoid it, how we hate it, how we get nervous about it. And so as we're getting started and getting rolling, I'd love to know who is here with us tonight. And I love for my lives to be really a conversation. So if you're here, let me know you're here. Let me know what you want to hear about regarding saying no. And as we go on, ask questions, bring up conversation. I'm just so happy to be in conversation instead of talking at you. So let me tell you a little bit about my relationship with the word no. Let's start there. And I was a classic yes person for a very long time. I loved to say yes. I love nothing more than being able to help someone or a group of someone's and being able to learn new stuff, contribute in new ways, and really like interact with new people and show them what I had in my arsenal and in my skill set. And what happened along the way was that I started resenting saying yes. I loved saying yes for a long time. And then I started resenting it because when you become the person who says yes to everything, you get asked to do everything. Makes sense, right? And it starts out in this flattering light, right? You are doing a job. Somebody asks you to do something. And it sounds cool. And it's cool to be like in someone else's view and in somebody else's radar. That was the word I was looking for, radar. It's cool to be in somebody else's radar. And it's really cool to just be recognized as someone who seems like they can do stuff, right? And so you get asked to do something, you say yes. It's fun to get out of your lane. It's fun to get to know some new people. You're building trust. And then you get asked to do something else. Cool. And then you get in conversation and you say like, hey, if you ever have any other stuff, why don't you ask me to do that? Okay, cool. So now you're getting more stuff. You're learning about more people. You're learning about more stuff. You're growing. You're contributing. And then you hit the wall. And I call it like the top of the mountain, the peak of the mountain. And you get to this peak and you don't want any more. But you've already established yourself as a person who says yes to everything. And so now you don't know how to not say no. Now, I'm talking about this in a work context, but it really shows up like everywhere. If you are a person who says yes at work all the time, you are probably also a person who says yes at home all the time. And it's not a problem until it's a problem, right? You, like I said, you hit this limit, this upper limit, where not only don't you want anybody to ask you to do anything additional, but you also don't want to be asked to do the things you're already doing, right? And so, the example of the way that this showed up in my life, and if you're just joining us, welcome. We're live on Restream and streaming through LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're with me, say hello in the comments. Let me know you're here, and let's start the chat. And feel free to kick in at any time, ask questions, have some conversation. I'm not actually seeing any chat right now, and that makes me a little bit worried because the other nights that I've been streaming through Restream, I have seen a chat. So say hello. Let me know you're here. But anyway, so my story is a little bit of a pile up of yeses that I was good at work. I am good at work. I'm the kind of person, and I think a lot of you will relate to this, that if somebody asks me to do something, like, I'm going to do it. I'm probably going to help. That's what I do. And I am the type of person that will figure it out. And so you can ask me to do a thing and then just sort of like leave it alone because I'll get it done. So I went into my career with a couple of different careers. I started right out of college as an assistant in a meeting planning capacity. Pretty quickly moved into an accounting job that didn't suit me at all, but there I was. Thankfully, it was entry level and very easy accounting work, so I could mostly use my fingers. And then I was tapped on the shoulder to move into a sales role, which was not for me. And then I moved into HR. And for 20 years, I was in HR. And for the last several years of my career, I got asked to do stuff that was outside of my lane. And it started really flattering, right? I was working for an investment company. The parent company was an insurance company. They were inviting me into projects. They were inviting me to consult on stuff. They were calling me for advice. At my previous job, I was a mentor to a lot of my HR peers. That was really fun. And so anytime anybody asked me for time, I gave it to them because it was fun and it was like flattering. And then in my last role, I was working for a nonprofit that was in the process of converting from grassroots to strategic. And in that process, I gave my 2 cents some of the time. And I had an opportunity to really like participate in stuff. And so when a director left, there was an opportunity for me to step in and manage that director's employees. And I thought, cool, I can manage people in a programs department. I know how to manage people. And that was cool and it was fun. And then a vice president left and I said, sure, I can manage fundraising. No problem. I know how to manage people in things. And I learned how to manage people in things. I wasn't great at fundraising though. But I then became the go-to person. I established myself as the person who would fill in when there was a hole. And it started to bite me because I didn't have any real space. I didn't have any breaks. And I wasn't in a position where I could, I'm not, my Restream's jumping around just a little bit. So here's hoping that everything is working and that I am live on LinkedIn. But I started resenting it. And I also started feeling this pressure that I couldn't say no, that it would look like I didn't want to do work if I went from being a person who said yes all the time to being a person who said no. Now, at the same time, my last job, for a lot of the time I was there, I was working insane hours. And I didn't tell anybody I was working insane hours. I just would take my laptop home at night and do the extra work. And that became my normal. And I just didn't love it anymore. I just was in a position where I didn't love it. I didn't know how to get out of it. I didn't know how to say no to it. And I'd love to hear in the comments, what scares you about saying no? What do you worry that people will think about you if you say no, if you deny a request? And in my post for this live, I put in a whole bunch of ways to say no, a bunch of ways to say no without inviting an argument and inviting a debate. But it's really easy for me to say, no, I won't do it, and not be in the situation. right? So I was in my own situations where I didn't say no and I regretted it. And then I didn't know how to like undo the yesing that I had done. So I want to talk about what scares us from saying no. And the things that I see with my clients, for the most part, is that there is a general sense that we don't want to let people down. Most of my clients, most of the people that I work with are really hardworking, really high achieving people pleasers, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a people pleaser. I remain to this day a people pleaser. And if I have boundaries around it and a little bit of control around it, then I have the capability to decide when I want to people please. If I am not making decisions and I'm just automatically saying yes to things, that's where I get into trouble. But I didn't learn those boundaries right away. That's why I was working these insane hours. And my feeling was, I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want anybody to be mad at me ever for anything in my whole life. Anybody relate to that? I don't want anybody to think I'm lazy. I don't want anybody to think I'm stupid. I don't want anybody to think I'm mean. That was a big one for me, that I thought that people would think I was mean if I set boundaries. And, for me, the big one was I had set this expectation that I would say yes to everything. And so I did. And to unset that expectation and to reverse that expectation just felt really uncomfortable for me. And a lot of people that I work with and a lot of people I encounter, not just my clients, but other coaches, other leaders, executives, people who are trying to climb the ladder to the executive level, feel this pressure to say yes for fear that they will get left behind or lost or forgotten about or dismissed as somebody who doesn't really want to do stuff if they say no to anything. What I realized slowly but surely, and this was a real work in progress, right? We've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it all the time. We don't just wake up one day and say like, okay, I'm going to be a person who says no, right? We've been building this muscle of saying yes for our lives, for our careers, based on expectations set in earlier jobs, in school, by parents, like whatever it is. We've been expected to say yes. It's been rewarding. And now it's not rewarding, right? And so for me, saying no started with not saying yes, which is different than saying no. So saying no for me started with not raising my hand when somebody said, who's going to wake up in the morning thinking about this? Or who's going to take charge of this? Or where does this belong? Or who's going to lead this? And I didn't raise my hand, where previously my MO was anytime there was silence in the room, I made this mental assumption that everybody thought I should do the thing, whatever the thing was, and I would do the thing. And so that was my first step, was just not overtly saying yes. The next thing that I did was to think about what I wanted to say no to. And that's the really scary one for me, for my clients. I have clients who come to me, they're doing things that are so far out of their scope of work, out of their job description, and they don't know how to back out of it without looking like they're lazy or dismissive, or they don't understand what they're doing. And so I recommend starting in really small steps, right? So first thing is pause, right? When somebody asks you to do something, our automatic, when we are people who say yes, our automatic is to say yes. Yeah, sure, I can help you. When what's really coming across is somebody asking you to do something that you don't necessarily want to, need to do. And so we say yes, and then we're like, oh crap, I shouldn't have said yes. I should have said no. I should have said no to that. But now I've said yes, and they're already counting on me, and they've already made plans in their head about what my yes means. And now I'm stuck with it. So the first thing to know is, if you say yes to something you don't want to say yes to, you have the right and personal responsibility to step out of that. And that's not an easy thing to do, because first you have to recognize that you want to, right? So I talk all the time about this trap of being fine, right? And fine is what we get to when we're justifying all the things that we're doing, all the things that we're saying, that we try to convince ourselves are great, we're fine, right? So you don't like your job, but it's fine because they're paying you a lot, or it's fine because you're an executive and that's what they expect of executives, or it's fine because there's nothing else particularly that you want to do, right? So when we say no, or when we want to say no and we haven't, and we've said yes, our brain does this thing where it justifies that it's okay, because like we need to self-soothe, right? We need to sort of pat ourselves on the shoulder and say like, hey, Lauren, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. And so we say yes to something, and then we want to say no. And then we twist it up in our brain that we've taken the responsibility. We need to do it. We've already committed. We've already said yes, and we can't say no. I want you to know, if you leave with anything tonight, you are allowed to change your mind. You certainly don't want to become a person who makes commitments and doesn't follow them through. You certainly don't want to be a person who always says yes and then backs out. But you've got to retrain your brain from being the auto yes. And sometimes there's pain in that, in saying yes and then coming back and saying no. So as you're figuring out who and how you want to be, as you continue to grow up, whatever age you are, we're continuing to grow up. Think about the things that you are saying yes to right now that you want to be able to say no to. And if there's something that's in your head right now, send me a DM. We can talk about it in the DM. We can set up a call to talk about it. But you have the capability to back out of a whole bunch of stuff without looking like a jerk and without losing credibility and trust. So that's the regrettable yes that I'm talking about, right? Now I want to talk about when you retrain your brain to stop saying yes automatically. And that's work, you guys. That's like not something I can solve on a 30-minute live, but it is something I can solve with you working together. And it is something that is a constant work in progress. But if you pay attention to it, and if you keep it top of mind, and if you're really working on what you want to say yes to and what you want to say no to, you can help yourself from saying yes to everything. So now let's look at the things you just want to say no to. Your boss comes up to you and says, hey, we've got this special project for you. We're so excited to get you on this project, right? Now, you know that the conversation before they reached out to you was like, what the F are we going to do about this project? We don't have anybody to work on it, right? And then you come into mind. Oh, Joey will do it. I always use Joey as a example employee. And I'm not sure why or where it came from, but I don't know any adults named Joey. If you're an adult named Joey, I'd love to know you, but I'm going to be using your name as the example. So the pre-conversation was Joey will do it. And the pre-conversation was Joey will do it because Joey always says yes to everything, right? And Joey's smart and capable and can like build teams and make people do stuff and bring people together. And so for Joey, it's very natural for people to come and ask him to do stuff. And because Joey always says yes, there is like a panic, visceral response in his body when somebody comes and asks him to do something, because he's known for saying yes. He wants to say yes. And he also wants to say no. because he's tired and overworked. So there are some things that you can do when your boss comes to you, or your coworker, or somebody on your team, or your spouse, or your friend, or your neighbor, right? This no spans across all kinds of things. And that is to pause. Same pause I told you when you think about saying yes and then regret it, right? You pause and you have to plan how to go back and say no. Well, if somebody comes to you and asks you to do something you don't want, and you've taken that pause, you have time to consider what your no answer is. And I can give you 30 different no's, right? No, thank you. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. No, I'm not interested. No, how dare you, right? Just when somebody comes to you with like the audacity to ask you something outrageous, like, hey, I know we live in Maryland, but I need a ride to Pittsburgh so I can fly out of there to go to Italy. Can you drive me to Pittsburgh? No, that's 5 hours away. What are you talking about? But we want to be friendly. We want to be helpful. We want to be nice. We want to be kind. So our inclination of can you do X is to say yes. We get the most scared to say no to people we feel have some sort of authority over us, right? So if there's somebody at work who's 2, 3, 4 levels below us, and they ask us to do something, we may be confident enough to redirect them. But if we are talking to a peer, if we're talking to our direct boss, or somebody who's in another department who's got some pull or some authority, it's really hard to say no. So it's okay to delay an answer also. To say, let me check on my workload and see if I can, right? And then be able to come back later and say, I checked and I can't. It's also okay in the moment, and you really got to practice this. And this is where having a coach can really help you, because you're undoing years and years and years of practice of saying yes to everything. You get to say no. And when you're talking to your boss, you want to be a little bit more comprehensive than no, right? If your boss says to you, hey, Joey, I want you to work on this new project, and you just say like, no, you may come out sounding a little dismissive. But if you pause and you think about it and you think, what I know about this project so far is that it'll take an extra 10 hours a week for like the next 6 to 10 weeks. So now I want to think about how I'm going to fit this in. And if you're solutions focused, then, and you do want to take it on, then some of your opportunities to say no are, I can't take this on right now, but after I finish the whatever project, I'm happy to take a look at it. Or I'd love to take this on. It's going to mean that I won't be able to do X, Y, Z. How should we manage that? Or can we pull in another person to help us? And know who your teammates are. Know what your structure looks like. Now, if your boss says, there's really no choice, I need you to fit it all in, then your opportunity is to set up a separate discussion that's not in the moment of you having to say yes to the thing, where you talk to your boss about the outline of your workload and you propose solutions. And that is different than just saying no. But you do have, like I said, the right and responsibility to really take a stand for yourself. And you have an opportunity to really appear actually very confident and powerful if you're willing to say no. And that feels new for a lot of people, because for a lot of us, our perception of no is I'm going to be disappointing people and they're going to say that I'm not a team player, or that I'm not responsible, or that I'm not good at my job, or that I'm lazy, or, you know, any number of negative self-talk kinds of things that we can say to ourselves. But the truth is, you actually get more respect when you start to say no appropriately and powerfully at work. And I'll give you an example. When I was at my last corporate job and I was working all of these crazy hours, I first started with not saying yes to stuff. And I did this all, by the way, with my own coach, because I had to unlearn my own behaviors, even while I was coaching other people to unlearn their behaviors. And I started by not raising my hand. When there was silence in the room, I let there be silence in the room. And either somebody else took on the thing, or we decided not to do the thing. Once I got more comfortable with not raising my hand, I started saying no. And I started making sure that things that belonged in a specific lane went into the specific lane. And one day my fear was realized when I said no to someone and their response was, "Isn't that your job?" Right? That's the thing we're afraid of, right? We carry all this anxiety of what's going to happen when we say no. And I said no. And then my worst fear was realized, that somebody called me out and said, "Isn't that your job?" And my answer was, it's actually not. I've done it before. I've said yes to it before because I know I'm capable of it, but it actually belongs to this person. So to respect them and their job, go to them and they'll help you take care of it. And then I was also respecting myself. So I'm going to start closing for tonight. And if you're here, thank you so much. If you watch in the replay, or if you're here now and you want to chat about this and you want to chat about getting better at saying no and really taking that stand for yourself to protect your time and your energy, shoot me a DM. I'll send you a link and we can set up a quick time to talk. If you have any questions about this conversation or any of my other live conversations, just shoot me a DM, let me know, and keep joining me. This is my 7th day going live of 21 in a row. I'll be here for 14 more days and beyond, of course, but probably not every day for the rest of my life. And I look forward to seeing your comments. I look forward to interacting with you, and I'll see you tomorrow.